Imagine humans living on Mars, not just for a few years, but for generations. Think about it. We're talking hundreds, even thousands of years. What would happen to us? How would our bodies change? It's not a quick thing, evolution, it takes time. But Mars is a very different place from Earth, and those differences would push us to change deep down in our bones and blood. We would become something new, something adapted to that red, dusty world. The first thing to understand is how different Mars really is. It's not just a bit colder or drier, it's a whole new ballgame for life. The biggest differences are gravity, radiation, and the atmosphere. These are the big drivers that would start shaping us. Let's talk about gravity first. On Mars, gravity is about one third of what it is on Earth. If you weigh 150 pounds here, you'd weigh about 57 pounds there. That's a huge change. Think about what your body does every day to fight gravity. Your bones are dense and strong because they have to hold you up against Earth's pull. Your muscles work hard just to move around. But on Mars, all that work becomes much easier. Over many generations, your bones wouldn't need to be so strong. They would likely become thinner, less dense, and more brittle. This isn't just about walking around, it's about every single bone in your body. Your skeleton might become lighter, more delicate. If these Martian-born people ever came back to Earth, our gravity would feel like a crushing weight. Their fragile bones might break easily under the stress. It would be a serious problem for them. And it's not just bones. Muscles would change too. You wouldn't need powerful leg muscles to walk. Your back muscles wouldn't need to strain so much. Over time, your muscles would likely shrink. They would become smaller, weaker, and less bulky. Our bodies are very efficient. They don't keep things they don't need. If you don't need big, strong muscles, your body stops putting energy into them. So, Martian humans might be much leaner, perhaps even spindly compared to Earth humans. Their bodies would be optimized for low gravity movement. Another big one is your heart and blood. On Earth, your heart has to pump hard to push blood up to your brain, fighting gravity all the way. On Mars, that job is much easier. Your heart wouldn't need to be as strong. Over many generations, the heart muscle could get smaller. Your blood pressure might be lower. This sounds good, maybe? But again, if a Martian-born person came to Earth, their cardiovascular system might struggle. They could faint easily. Their heart might not be able to cope with the increased demand. Their bodies would be built for a different world, and returning to Earth could be dangerous, maybe even deadly, without extreme medical help. Now, let's think about height. Astronauts in space, even for a few months, get taller. Their spines decompress without Earth's gravity pulling them down. On Mars, with one-third gravity, this effect would likely be passed down. Martian humans could become taller on average. Their limbs might lengthen a bit too. Imagine people with long, slender bodies, tall and graceful in the low gravity. They would move with an effortless bounce that would seem strange to us. Next up is radiation. Mars doesn't have a thick atmosphere or a strong magnetic field like Earth does. This means a lot more cosmic radiation and solar radiation hits the surface. We would build habitats to shield against it, but some radiation would always get through. And outside, in suits, the exposure would be higher. Radiation is a big deal because it causes damage to our cells and DNA. It increases the risk of cancer, but it also increases the rate of mutations. Some of these mutations are bad, but some might actually offer an advantage. Over time, there could be evolutionary pressures to develop better radiation resistance. Maybe this means darker skin with more melanin, or even thicker skin. Perhaps our bodies would evolve more efficient DNA repair mechanisms. Or maybe, and this is a bit grim, those individuals most susceptible to radiation damage simply wouldn't survive long enough to reproduce, slowly removing those weaker genes from the population. What about our eyes? We mostly live indoors on Mars. Artificial light would be common. But there might also be a push to see better in lower light conditions or in the specific red-tinted light that filters through the thin Martian atmosphere. Perhaps our eyes would adapt to be more sensitive to specific wavelengths. Maybe our pupils would get larger, or our eyes would become slightly bigger to gather more light. This could mean we'd be more sensitive to bright light if we ever came back to Earth. The atmosphere itself is very thin and mostly carbon dioxide. We can't breathe it. So we'd live in sealed environments. This means our lungs wouldn't directly adapt to breathing Martian air. But living in a closed system could have other effects. The air inside habitats would be recycled and tightly controlled. Over generations, our respiratory systems might adapt to very specific atmospheric compositions. If something went wrong with the air filtration, those with slightly more robust or adaptable lungs might have an edge. Temperature is another factor. Mars is incredibly cold. While we would live in heated habitats, brief exposures, or living on the edge of comfort could push for some subtle changes. Perhaps an increase in body fat for insulation, or even a different type of fat that generates more heat. But this is less likely than other changes, given our reliance on technology for warmth. Let's think about our immune system. On Earth, we are constantly exposed to countless bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Our immune systems are complex and robust because they have to fight off so many different threats. But on Mars, in a closed habitat, the microbial environment would be very different. It would be much more controlled and likely much less diverse. Over many generations, an isolated Martian population might develop a narrower range of immune responses. Their immune systems might become less broad spectrum and more specialized for the few microbes present in their sealed environment. This could be a huge problem. If a Martian-born person ever encountered the full range of Earth's pathogens, their immune system might be completely overwhelmed. A common cold for us could be a deadly plague for them. This is a very real danger for any isolated population in space. What about reproduction? This is a huge unknown. How would low gravity affect pregnancy? Would babies develop differently in the womb? Would birth be easier or harder? The human body evolved to give birth under Earth's gravity. A baby's head is big, and the pelvis is relatively small. This is a tight squeeze. In low gravity, perhaps the baby's skull could grow slightly larger. Or perhaps the birthing process itself would be less strenuous for the mother. But any significant change here could also mean that Earth-born and Mars-born people might eventually have trouble reproducing with each other. This is a key step towards becoming a separate species. And then there's diet. We wouldn't be eating Earth food. We'd grow food in Martian greenhouses recycling nutrients. This means a very controlled diet, perhaps limited in variety, but highly optimized. Over generations, our digestive systems could adapt to this specific Martian diet. Our gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in our intestines, would shift dramatically. It would evolve to thrive on the specific Martian-grown foods, perhaps becoming more efficient at extracting nutrients from them. This also ties into the immune system. A healthy gut microbiome is crucial for overall health. A Martian gut would be very different from an Earth gut. Beyond the physical, there are cognitive and behavioral changes to consider. Living on Mars would be a constant challenge. It would require immense problem-solving skills, resilience, and cooperation. People who are naturally good at these things would likely thrive and pass on those traits. Living in confined spaces, often with the same small group of people, would put a premium on social harmony. People who are less aggressive, more cooperative, and better at managing stress would be better suited for Martian life. Over time, these psychological traits could become more common in the Martian population. Sensory perception might shift too. The sounds of Mars would be different. The hum of machinery, the whispers of wind through thin air, less natural wildlife soundscapes. Visually, the dominant colors are red and brown. Inside, the lighting would be artificial. Our brains are incredibly adaptable. Over many generations, the way we process sights and sounds could subtly change, tuned to the Martian environment. Perhaps a higher tolerance for background noise, or a heightened awareness of subtle changes in mechanical sounds, indicating a problem. The Martian day, called a sol, is about 24 hours and 39 minutes long. It's only a bit longer than an Earth day, but it's enough to throw off our natural circadian rhythms. Over hundreds of generations, our internal clocks could shift to match the Martian sol. This could mean a natural tendency to wake up and go to sleep a little later each day by Earth standards. Their language and culture would also evolve. While not strictly biological, these are deeply human. New words would emerge from Martian phenomena, technologies, and experiences. Martian traditions, stories, and even jokes would form. This new culture would shape the way Martians think and interact, and it would be distinctly different from Earth culture. It would reinforce their identity as Martians. The underlying mechanism for all this is genetic evolution. Their radiation exposure, even if minimal, would increase the mutation rate. Most mutations are neutral or harmful, but some could be beneficial in the Martian environment. These beneficial mutations would be favored by natural selection. Natural selection is simply the process where individuals better adapted to their environment tend to survive and reproduce more successfully. On Mars, the harsh environment itself is the selective pressure. Traits that help people survive the radiation, adapt to low gravity, thrive on the Martian diet, and get along in enclosed spaces these traits would become more common. People with traits that hinder them in this environment would be less likely to pass on their genes. Also, we need to think about genetic drift. If the initial population of Martian colonists is small, then by chance, some genes might become more common just because the first few people happen to have them. Others might disappear. This reduces genetic diversity in the early stages. Over time, as the population grows, diversity can increase again through mutation, but the starting point matters a lot. And there's epigenetics. This is about how our environment can switch genes on or off without changing the actual DNA sequence. These changes can sometimes be passed down to the next generation. So while full genetic evolution takes a long time, epigenetic changes can happen faster. The Martian environment could rapidly influence how our genes are expressed, leading to quick adaptations that might then become more permanent through genetic selection over time. Given enough time, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of years. Would these Martian humans become a separate species? The definition of a species is often based on whether two groups can still interbreed and produce fertile offspring. If Martian humans become so physically and genetically different that they can no longer successfully reproduce with Earth humans, then they would indeed be a separate species. Imagine two types of humans, fundamentally distinct, one tailored for Earth, the other for Mars. The Martian could truly become a distinct branch of humanity, or even a new kind of human altogether. They might be recognized by their taller, more slender frames, perhaps slightly paler skin from less direct sunlight, or eyes adapted to dimmer or different light. Their entire physiology, from their cardiovascular system to their immune response, would be designed for a world with 1/3 gravity and high radiation. But it's not a simple natural evolution process we are talking about. We humans are not passive. We're engineers. We would actively try to shape our environment, and we might even try to shape ourselves. This is where things get really complicated. We would use technology to protect ourselves. We'd build elaborate habitats, medical facilities, and we might even use gene editing. What if we could edit genes to make us naturally more resistant to radiation? Or to grow stronger bones in low gravity. This is called artificial selection or even directed evolution. If we start doing this, then the natural evolution process would be interfered with. And we would be choosing our own path, trying to accelerate or guide our adaptation. This raises huge ethical questions. Should we allow natural selection to run its course, even if it means many early colonists struggle? Or should we intervene with advanced technology and gene editing? Who decides what the ideal Martian human looks like? These are questions we would have to grapple with. And what about reversibility? If a Martian-born person, perfectly adapted to low gravity, thin bones, and a weak heart, were to return to Earth, could they survive? It's highly unlikely without extensive medical support and a very careful readaptation process. Their body would not be able to handle Earth's gravity, its dense atmosphere, or its diverse microbial environment. This would mean that the two populations, Earth humans and Mars humans, might become increasingly isolated, not just by distance, but by biology. The timescales for these changes are immense. We're not talking about a few generations. Significant bone and muscle changes might be noticeable within a few centuries, but a full transformation leading to a new species would take thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years. It's a slow, relentless process. Our first Martian colonists would look exactly like us, and it would be their great-great-great-grandchildren, many times removed, who would start to show distinct differences. In the end, colonization of Mars is not just about moving to a new planet. It's about changing who we are. It's about becoming something new. Evolution is a powerful force, and it works on whatever life it finds in whatever environment it lives in. Mars would push us, it would challenge us, and over vast spans of time, it would reshape us into something specifically adapted to its red deserts and thin skies. We would still be human, in a sense. We would carry echoes of our Earth origins. But we would also be different, uniquely Martian. It's a testament to the incredible adaptability of life itself. We would be living proof that life, given a chance, finds a way to change, to fit, to thrive, even on a harsh alien world. The future of humanity might just involve becoming multiple kinds of human, each perfectly suited to their own corner of the solar system.